Archie vs. Predator, written by Alex Campi and art by Fernando Ruiz. In this video, I will be covering Archie vs. Predator, AVP. Not to be confused with Alien vs. Predator, this is Archie vs. Predator. And I wanted to cover it because I think this concept sounds pretty hilarious. I'm a big fan of silly comic book crossovers, and Archie Comics has done some pretty interesting ones over the years. They've crossed over with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kiss, Glee, Punisher, Batman, specifically the Adam West version of Batman, Sharknado, and they've even done a Red Sonja Vampirella meets Betty and Veronica one as well. But specifically, Predator sounds really interesting to me, because Predator, he is a brutal killer, and I am happy to report that this book does not shy away from the violence. Predator gets some pretty gory kills in on this book, so it is going to be a good time. It is not the greatest comic book ever or anything, but it was a little bit better than I expected, and I think you will all enjoy it. So let's dive into it. Archie vs. Predator. Before I dive into issue 1, I want to do a little character breakdown first, in case you are not familiar with all of the various Archie characters and what their character stereotype is. So there is Archie Andrews, our main character, Jughead Jones, Archie's best friend who loves eating food, Veronica Lodge, the rich socialite and love interest of Archie, Betty Cooper, the girl next door and another love interest of Archie. There's Reggie Mantle, the self-proclaimed ladies' man and sometimes a jerk, Moose Mason, the dumb jock, Moose's girlfriend, Midge Clump, the token black character, Chuck Clayton, Chuck's girlfriend, Nancy Woods, rich snob, Cheryl Blossom, and her twin brother, Jason Blossom. They actually go to a fancy private school and often mock the others attending the public Riverdale high school. Dilton Doily, the nerd, Ginger Lopez, the token Latina character, also the token lesbian, Ethel Muggs, the ugly girl who is infatuated with Jughead, Kevin Keller, the token gay character, and Sabrina Spellman, who's actually a witch, and she lives outside of Riverdale in the town of Greendale, but she is part of the same Archie universe. Alright, so those are the Archie characters. Now let's dive into issue 1 and see Predator brutally kill almost all of them. Issue 1, When You Wish Upon a Star. The main cover is Archie and the gang on vacation, and we see Predator ominously in the background. And the tagline reads, "Beach games, party games, the most dangerous game." Archie series like this are known for having tons of variant covers, so I just want to go through some of them now. This one is by Francesco Francavilla, which those of you familiar with the Afterlife with Archie series should recognize his artwork style in this cover. There's this cover where we see a beach and everyone's playing beach volleyball, and Predator, who's invisible, is shooting the ball. In this variant, we see Archie and his friends are performing music in their garage, and Predator walks up with a guitar to join them. And this last variant is Predator holding Jughead's decapitated head. Our story opens at Riverdale High School. Archie Andrews is hanging out with his love interests, Betty Cooper and Veronica Lodge, and his best friend, Jughead Jones. They are discussing what they should do for spring break. At that moment, in a red convertible, rich kids Cheryl and Jason Blossom pull up, and they gloat that they are going to a fancy Caribbean vacation for spring break. And Cheryl assumes the rest of them are going somewhere lame, probably just hanging out around town. Jughead, at that moment, was tearing into a bag of potato chips, and inside that bag pops out some sort of winning ticket for a contest the chip company was running. So, because Jughead won that contest, him, Archie, and the rest of their friends are all going to a luxury beach vacation in Costa Rica for spring break, courtesy of that winning bag of potato chips. Fast forward, and we see Archie and his gang have all arrived at the Los Perdidos resort in Costa Rica. They all unpack and they hang out at the bar. Dilton Doily, the school nerd, he is worried about his work on the school yearbook. It's due in just a few days once they get back from this trip, and he still needs to do all the polls. You know, the ones that answer the questions like who's most likely to succeed and who's best dressed? Later that night, in the night sky, we see a shooting star flies by. Only, it is not a shooting star. It is actually Predator's spaceship landing in the jungle. For those of you unfamiliar with Predator, he or she is an extraterrestrial species that has been featured in at least 6 Predator movies, with a 7th coming out in 2022 called Prey. Predator is characterized by his trophy hunting of other species for sport. Predator, he usually uses advanced technology when hunting prey. He'll have things like active camouflage, making him almost invisible, infrared vision, as well as directed energy weapons that sit on his shoulder. In the morning, as Archie and all of his friends are enjoying themselves, Cheryl and Jason Blossom decided to join the other Riverdale High kids at their resort, even though they were not invited by Jughead as part of the contest. To pass time for the day, Veronica convinces everyone that the girls should have a best dressed contest and the guys can vote, and the winner will get best dressed in the high school yearbook, which is the title Veronica really wants. The guys, they don't mind. I mean, they get to look at all the girls in hot outfits and evaluate their appearance. What's not to like? So the girls, they start changing into their outfits. Betty, she's a little self-conscious though. She doesn't want to compete, so she walks off. And Betty, she ends up talking to Cheryl Blossom. And Cheryl, who's rich and likes to start shit, offers Betty her fanciest, most expensive clothes in order for Betty to compete in the contest and show up Veronica. Betty, she wouldn't normally care or stoop to something like this, but she eventually changes her mind when she sees how Archie is staring at Veronica on the beach, all infatuated like. So the girls get in their outfits and the guys judge. Everyone pretty much picked Veronica to be best dressed, except for Moose, who comments, "Veronica's nice, but she's not my Midge," referring to his girlfriend, Midge. Veronica is going to be the clear winner, but then Betty shows up in Cheryl's Chanel outfit that she borrowed, and the guys think that Betty looks pretty smokin', and they vote for Betty to win best dressed. Veronica, she throws a fit, and she asks, how can Betty even afford Chanel, even if it is last year's? Cheryl then arrives and gloats and says, because it's mine. And Veronica says to Betty, Betty, you teamed up with Cheryl to publicly humiliate me? You traitor! Veronica and Betty start fighting on the beach. Mascara is running, hair is being pulled. Horny guys like Reggie are entertained by seeing a cat fight really close up. Predator, he is watching the fight as well from a distance. And we see his Predator vision in action, his infrared, X-ray thing going on. We also see some weird emoji symbols on his Predator vision. Predator seems to approve of the fighting and has become slightly infatuated with Betty. He develops a crush on her. Archie, he tries to break up the fight between Betty and Veronica, but he trips and he accidentally tackles Veronica down, and Veronica, as she's falling, accidentally punches Betty in the face, giving Betty a bloody nose. Archie and Veronica find themselves on top of each other, and in all of the commotion and fumbling, they somehow end up kissing a bit. And Betty sees this, and she runs off very upset. Reggie, he was entertained by the whole thing, and he says, best morning ever. Now Betty, trying to get away from the others, walks through the jungle a bit. Predator starts trailing her from in the trees. Betty overhears Jason and Cheryl Blossom in the jungle. They are searching for some trinkets or valuables that they can take with them. Betty, she walks on and she eventually stumbles upon some sort of ancient shrine hidden inside a cave. That's entrance appears to be sculpted into the shape of a jaguar. Inside the shrine, Betty finds a fancy-looking dagger with a jaguar shape in the handle. And Betty, playing with the dagger, says, "I, Betty Cooper, call down jaguar vengeance on nasty old Cheryl Blossom and Veronica Lodge for punching me in the face and kissing my Archie." As she does this, though, the shrine begins crumbling and it's getting ready to collapse. Betty runs out of the shrine and she drops the dagger, but the dagger gets caught in her outfit and she doesn't notice, and the dagger stays with her. The dagger, we will soon learn, is cursed, and Betty can't even seem to get rid of it if she tries. Betty, she had that dagger and she put a curse on Cheryl and Veronica with it. Betty, she eventually returns from the jungle to rejoin the others at their resort. The others had already started looking for her as she was gone quite a while. Everyone is glad to see that Betty is safe and back with them. Veronica, she even apologizes for her actions earlier in the fight that they had. Veronica asks if Betty saw Cheryl and Jason while she was out there in the jungle, as Veronica has a bone to pick with them. Betty replies, "Oh, who cares about them anyway? They've probably slunk back to their luxury yacht." However, we see, up above, Predator has made his first kills. Predator has killed Cheryl and Jason Blossom, and gorily removed their skull and spine from their bodies as the blood is dripping down below. That evening, Archie and his friends decide that they would rather spend the rest of their spring break in Riverdale, and they decide to go back home early. On the plane ride back, Betty discovers she accidentally brought that weird jaguar dagger with her that she saw in that jungle shrine. When Archie and the gang return back to Riverdale, they decide to go to Pops's diner and enjoy some food. Issue 2. To Live and Die in a Small Town. The main cover of this issue, we see Archie, Betty, and Veronica in Pops's diner, with Predator hiding under the table waiting to attack. The variant cover shows Archie and his friends as little kids with water guns and Archie with a wooden sword, as Predator is looking intimidating. And this other variant has Predator standing triumphant over a defeated, injured Archie, and Veronica with a baseball bat says, "Back off, Archie's mine." Continuing on in the diner, Dilton comes in frantic. He informs the group that Cheryl and Jason Blossom were killed near their resort. Everyone is very shocked by the news. Pop Tate, the diner owner, brings a welcome home cake for the Riverdale crew. The Riverdale kids go on a Caribbean vacation for a few days, and apparently that warrants a welcome home cake. Whatever. Pop, he brings the cake over, and while everyone is concerned about the deaths of Cheryl and Jason Blossom, Jughead, he is just salivating over that cake. Pops has a knife he's gonna cut the cake with. Predator, though, he followed the Riverdale kids back to Riverdale from Costa Rica. Why did he do this? The story isn't particularly clear on this, but I think it is due to his love interest in Betty, and he was following her. Predator, he sees Pop Tate holding that knife, ready to cut that cake, but Predator, seeing that knife, scans it, and he interprets it as a weapon and a threat. So Predator, he blasts Pop's head off, killing him. Archie and the others are freaked out that Pop's head just exploded and they are covered in blood, although Jughead, he's still able to eat some fries. Despite all of this, the whole group of them head into the back room to hide until the police arrive. We see Jughead has brought the cake with him, and I believe we see Pops's eye on top of the cake. Which now brings up the question, will Jughead still eat that cake or not? Betty and Veronica, in the back room of the diner excuse themselves to the bathroom, and Betty, she slips out of the diner with Veronica through a window. Betty with Veronica wants to head to Greendale to visit Sabrina Spellman. Betty thinks when she was in the jungle, she accidentally put a curse on Cheryl and Veronica when she was handling that jaguar dagger. And now that is maybe the reason they are being hunted by something supernatural. Supernatural stuff is Sabrina's specialty, so maybe she will know how to put a stop to it and break the curse. Betty and Veronica, they eventually arrive at Sabrina's house, and she lets them into her home. Betty explains the situation and gives Sabrina the jaguar dagger. Sabrina tells Betty that the easiest way to break a curse like this would be to use the knife to kill as many people as she cursed. So, 2 people. But instead, Sabrina has something else that might work. Sabrina pulls out one of her big spell books, and then she puts on a weird mask, and she begins saying some odd incantation. She's reciting it. She thinks that maybe what she is doing now will break whatever this potential curse is on the dagger. Only problem is, though, Predator was following Betty, and he sees Sabrina and sees her as a threat, and he jumps in through the window, and Predator stabs Sabrina through her chest. The jaguar dagger falls to the ground and appears to break. Predator, he then rips off Sabrina's head and spine from her body, and blood splatters in Veronica's face like we're watching a Kill Bill movie. Sabrina's cat, Salem, jumps at Predator, trying to attack him, and Predator lasers Salem dead, turning him into bones. Predator, he then leaves. So Betty and Veronica, they are left alone in Sabrina's home, wondering what just happened. Veronica decides to change her clothes. She wants to wear something not covered in blood. Maybe she can fit into something of Sabrina's. It's not like Sabrina will need it anymore. Betty, she managed to take a video of Predator while he was attacking Sabrina. So while Veronica is changing, Betty, she thinks that maybe she should grab a weapon to protect herself in case Predator returns. She finds an axe on the wall of Sabrina's home, and Betty picks it up. Now Predator, he was outside of the house, but when he sees Betty pick up that axe, he then views her as a threat, so he gets ready to vaporize her. Veronica tells Betty, though, to just drop the axe. She'll probably just trip over and injure herself. And Betty concedes that Veronica is probably right, so she drops the axe. And Predator, seeing Betty drop the axe, no longer sees her as a threat, so he just leaves her be. Predator, for the most part, only seems to be killing those that are holding some sort of weapon and appear to pose a threat to him. The jaguar dagger, which shattered earlier when Sabrina dropped it, appears to have regrown and reformed. Betty and Veronica bring the dagger with them, and they rejoin the others who left Pop's Diner and are now hiding out down at Riverdale High School. One of the Riverdale kids, Kevin Keller, brought his dad, who is a high-up U.S. military general. Betty, she shows everyone the video she took of Predator attacking Sabrina earlier so they can get an idea of who their attacker is. Kevin's dad, the military general, he recognizes the creature on the video as Predator. He is familiar with Predator. He explains to all the kids that the existence of the Predator is something the US military has been hiding from its citizens. He explains that the Predators are a race of nearly unstoppable alien hunters who make planetfall on Earth in times of extreme heat. The Predators hunt the planet's most dangerous warriors, gangsters, black ops soldiers, etc., and it takes their skulls. There are specific rules, though, for the Predators. The target must have a weapon or must directly challenge the predator. Their stealth armor makes them nearly invisible, and they have infrared vision. It's bad news, kids, really bad news. On the plus side, given the size of this specimen, he appears to be a juvenile example. So the predator that's been attacking them is actually a teenaged predator. Kevin's dad asks the kids if any of them recently did anything to be perceived as violent by the predator, and Reggie answers that Veronica did smash in Betty's nose in a cat fight in Costa Rica. Kevin's dad theorizes that maybe Predator wants to kill Veronica then. He says that if he had his special ops unit, they would send out a soldier dressed as Veronica as bait to lure Predator in, and then they would hit Predator with everything they got. Veronica manages to convince Jughead to dress in her old, bloodied clothes and be bait for the Predator. She promises Jughead free lunch for a year, and he takes her up on her offer. So Kevin's dad equips his son, Kevin Keller, as well as Reggie, Chuck Clayton, Moose, and Moose's girlfriend, Midge, who thinks of herself as a badass. He equips them all with guns, and they head off with Jughead to set a trap for the Predator in the street and attempt to kill him. Archie and Dilton are to stay behind with the girls. In the street, Jughead, dressed as Veronica, is standing out in the open, waiting for Predator to attack him. Predator, with his infrared heat vision, sees the trap waiting for him though. Predator sees Kevin's dad and the rest of the kids with guns hiding behind a car. Predator aims at the car with his weapons and makes it explode, and Midge Clump dies in the blast. Midge's boyfriend Moose is holding her in his arms. Kevin's dad is trapped under some rubble and tells the rest of the kids to give Predator everything you got. Kevin, Chuck, and Reggie start firing with their machine guns full on Predator. Predator is dodging, and with his laser gun strapped on his shoulder, he lasers right through Kevin, Reggie, and Chuck. Chuck, with only one leg now, bleeding profusely, crawls over to Predator and tells him, "Hey Ugly, yo mama said it was your birthday, so I got you a present." And Chuck pulls out a grenade, he pulls the pin, and it explodes. And Chuck, he heroically dies in the blast, but he hopes that this will kill Predator. It does not though. Predator does run away injured though down the street. And we see as Predator heads off, Jughead is in fact still alive. Issue 3, Full Metal Varsity Jacket. The main cover has Predator, Archie, and Betty sharing a milkshake with 3 straws, and Predator having a dumb, smiling, happy look on his face. In this variant cover, we see Predator up in a tree with the skull, Jughead, and he is stalking Archie, Veronica, and Betty from above. In this other variant cover, we see Predator as some sort of biker, and Betty and Veronica appear to be into him over Archie. So Jughead returns to the high school. He tells the others that everyone he went with is dead. The Predator killed them. Midge, Kevin Keller, Kevin's dad, Moose, Reggie, and Chuck. Archie asks if Predator is dead too, and Jughead answers, "I don't know. I saw its blood, but I think it got away." They're all discussing plans on what they should do now. Archie says that they should just stay here and wait for the police. Dilton, looking on his phone, says the entire Riverdale police force, both cars, were helping Greendale's cops at the Spellman home when all of a sudden it just disappeared. And we see the house is completely missing now, and the police seem to have been replaced with a whole bunch of goats for some reason. It's not really explained what happened, but I'm assuming weird magic stuff at Sabrina Spellman's house was the cause of all this. Jughead laments, "Oh God, we're all alone." Nancy Woods, the black female character, says, "I have watched over 300 horror movies, and teenagers of color never make it to the end. So her, Ginger, and Ethel are gonna bounce. They're gonna leave town. They're gonna go 200 miles south to one of their beach houses, and they're not gonna stick around with Predator on the loose." But our main Riverdale kids, Archie, Jughead, Betty, Veronica, and the nerd Dilton, are going to stay behind for, plot reasons. Dilton tells the remaining kids to join him in the AV club room. They all start walking through the high school halls over to the AV room. On the way, Jughead spots a vending machine and wants to get some food from it. And we see Predator is watching Jughead from the vents in the school. Jughead, he doesn't have any money though, so he starts looking through this knapsack, which belongs to Betty or Veronica, and inside he finds that jaguar dagger. So Jughead, he grabs the dagger and is going to use it to get some snacks from the vending machine. Only issue is though, Predator is watching Jughead and views Jughead holding that dagger as a threat. So Predator brutally kills Jughead as well. Archie hears the loud noise of Predator attacking Jughead, and when Archie finally arrives, he sees Jughead's decapitated head and spine sitting inside the vending machine. Archie is furious, and holding Jughead's crown, he yells, "My friends aren't warriors, they're kids! And Jughead is the gentlest spirit you'll ever meet." Dilton, he continues leading Archie, Betty, and Veronica over to the AV room. While they are walking over there, Dilton, he sees the way Veronica and Betty are fawning over Archie, and Dilton is sad that he never gets any action from the ladies himself. He's a little bit of an incel, I think. Dilton comments, "I'm a good guy. I'm a real gentleman. Heck, I'm already a millionaire from my App Store earnings, but nobody picks me." "Oh, Dilton, high school's hard, man, but it gets better." Dilton continues, "I try not to let it bother me. Spending Friday nights reading old issues of reviews of modern physics and playing chess instead of going to dances and movies, wishing I could be somebody else, even just for a little while." They all finally enter the AV room, where we see Dilton has built, this is ridiculous by the way, he has built a gigantic, deadly Archie robot. Archie, Betty, and Veronica are a little bit puzzled. Veronica asks Dilton, "Why did you build it to be Archie though?" And Dilton answers, "Don't you realize, Veronica? Everything is Archie." Dilton, he steps into his Archie robot and says he is going to save the day and kill Predator with it. Dilton, he boots up the robot. Predator, he then begins attacking the Archie robot, and Dilton is having a little bit of trouble getting the weapons system online. Archie, he tries to save Dilton by hitting Predator with a wrench. Predator grabs Archie and is going to kill him, but then Dilton and the Archie robot starts successfully getting it to maneuver the way he wants, and he lands a punch on Predator. Predator falls back a bit. Archie robot then shoots a projectile fist at Predator. Predator, he dodges and swings, and he ends up stabbing the real Archie in the shoulder. Dilton, he manages to shoot a net and trap Predator. Predator seems captured now. Seems like he is maybe down for the count. Veronica is tending to Archie, who is badly injured. Betty tells Dilton that he did well and that she's proud of him. And Dilton, feeling that he did a good job, removes the Archie robot head and smiles and says, "I'm the hero!" Problem is though, Predator managed to escape the netting using the jaguar dagger. He cut through it and freed himself, and Predator with that dagger stabs it into the back of Dilton's neck, killing him. Predator then does his signature move and decapitates Dilton and rips Dilton's head from his body along with his spine. Issue 4. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? On the main cover, we see Betty and Veronica in scantily clad clothing in the jungle with knives as Predator is shown in shadow. The tagline reads, "Frenemies no more." The variant cover here, we see Predator is dragging Veronica and Archie away as Betty is left behind covered in mud. And Betty says, "I can't believe he took Veronica over me. It's like I'm invisible." This last variant cover shows Predator at the prom dancing with Betty and Veronica as Archie is left out. Predator removes his mask and slurps Dilton's skin off of his face. He then attempts to hand the Jaguar dagger to Veronica, I assume so she can defend herself and they can battle. Veronica refuses though and tells Predator to please go away. Predator is confused, but he leaves. He is not going to fight someone not holding a weapon. Later on, Betty and Veronica have retreated back to Veronica's house along with a badly injured Archie. Betty and Veronica discuss the dagger. Veronica explains that Sabrina told them the dagger needs to take 2 lives because Betty cursed 2 people with it. Predator killed Dilton with the dagger, so that means that someone else still has to die at the hands of that dagger. Betty asks Veronica, what are they gonna do? Veronica answers, Daddy installed a panic room in Lodge Manor last year. After that Russian arms deal went sour, we're going to use it. They retreat to the panic room, and Veronica's plan is to start her home's self-destruct mechanism, which apparently it has, and set the house to blow in 15 minutes. And hopefully they can lure Predator to the house and kill him in the blast. And they will be safe in the panic room. In the panic room, her dad has some sort of ridiculous, ludicrous machine that will heal people when you place them inside of it, even performing surgery if needed. Veronica places the badly injured Archie in the machine, and she ignores the tape on the machine across certain buttons that says danger and no. She straps Archie in, and she turns the dials all the way to max and says, who cares? The machine starts poking into Archie and healing him and doing all sorts of crazy shit to him. Veronica kisses Archie and then leaves, and Veronica and Betty head upstairs out of the panic room. We see that this weird medical machine has a post-it note from Veronica's dad that reads, do not ever turn dial beyond 4. And Veronica turned that shit up to 11, so that is probably not good. The machine apparently appears to be turning Archie into some kind of monster. Upstairs, Predator arrives at the front door of Veronica's home. Veronica, now brandishing a machine gun, starts feeding bullets into Predator. Betty and Veronica have successfully lured Predator to their home, and the two of them now try and retreat to the safety of the panic room so that when the house self-destructs up above, Predator will die in the blast. Now, Betty and Veronica, they get through the doorway of the panic room, but before they can close the door, Predator gets his arm in there and stops it from sealing. Archie, he then, now awake, attacks Predator. The machine not only healed Archie, but made him super jacked, like a shitty Ginger Incredible Hulk. Archie punches Predator and Predator flies back in the room. We see 4 minutes and 55 seconds are left on the self-destruct timer. Predator, he grabs a mace, and Hulk Archie grabs an axe. The two of them swinging at each other and battle back and forth. Veronica has that Jaguar dagger, and she is going to try and stab Predator with it. But Predator, seeing her as a threat now because she's holding a weapon, stabs Veronica in her stomach. Predator almost seems sad about doing this though. Archie smacks Predator in the back of his head. He then throws a statue at Predator. Predator and Archie are then face to face. Predator almost stabs Archie in his eye, but Betty, now holding a sword, swings at Predator with it, and Predator is forced to defend himself and slice off Betty's hand. Predator, he then stabs right through Archie's head and makes his goddamn head explode from the impact. And Betty says, "You killed my Archie, you... And Predator, he is going to kill Betty because she is holding that jaguar dagger. But he loves her after all, so he hesitates. He is resisting his urges to kill her. And that hesitation is enough for Betty to stab Predator with that jaguar dagger. And Veronica hits Predator in the head with a mace. Betty and Veronica have severely wounded the Predator. The two of them mourn the loss of Archie, though. Betty asks Veronica, what are they gonna do without Archie? Veronica says, the house is gonna blow soon. We need to get to the panic room. And Betty replies, why bother? There's nothing to live for without Archie. Predator, still alive, but barely. He begins to show regret for his actions. And he says, Betty go. Betty lives. Predator wants Betty to live and was encouraging her to get to safety. We see the house explodes. And on the final page, we see that Betty and Veronica have made it into the panic room alive. And they used Veronica's dad's ridiculous medical healing machine to heal their injuries. Betty tells Veronica, did you know there's a whole section in the manual for this machine on face and body reconstruction? And Veronica says, please tell me you didn't give yourself plastic surgery. And Betty replies, ew, no, not for us. But guess what, Veronica? We won't have to live without at least some version of Archie after all. We see that Predator is still alive, and Betty used the machine to give plastic surgery to Predator and make him look like Archie. Betty says, I mean, we'll have to teach him to chill out around the cutlery, but he is devoted to us. After all, he dragged himself in here to be with us. And that is the ridiculous end to Archie versus Predator. Alright, so that was Archie versus Predator. Before I talk about my final thoughts, I do want to mention that there is an Archie vs. Predator 2 book written by the same writer, and it continues the story where this one left off, where Betty and Veronica leave town with the Archie version of Predator, and they somehow get transported to the rebooted Mark Waid version of the Archie universe, and the whole thing is very meta, and I gotta be honest, I did not really dig it that much. So I did not love the sequel, but I was a pretty big fan of Archie vs. Predator, the first one here, and I thought it was a pretty good time. Was it the greatest comic book ever? No, but it was pretty amusing and definitely surpassed my expectations going into it for what they could do with the concept. Now, there is lots of really dumb things in this book that I do have to point out that did kind of bother me and do kind of showcase some maybe poor story decisions. So the whole Jaguar Dagger curse thing, I don't think was really well thought out at the end and didn't really have a great payoff. Why was Predator following them all around the world? The explanation for that was not really that great. I guess he just really loved Betty, okay. Dilton building that Archie robot was pretty cringy and ridiculous. That ridiculous machine that Veronica's dad supposedly has in their home that is able to heal people and perform surgery on people, even plastic surgery, that was pretty out there. And the machine turns Archie into like a Hulk Archie. That was pretty silly. And the final page where we have the machine performing plastic surgery on Predator to turn him into Archie was also very silly, although I did laugh at that and thought it was kind of a cute ending to end the story on. But despite all those kind of dumb things, I thought this book was really fun. I like that they really went for it with that whole predator killing concept. I like that the book was gory. I like that it was kind of like a slasher film with Predator just killing all the kids. The kids are trying to survive. And the final girls are Betty and Veronica, and they sort of get Predator in the end, although they make him their new boyfriend, whatever. But yeah, this was an enjoyable book, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back next week with more comics.